something that's going to sound really, really depressing to talk about, but try and remember, by the end of this, we can offer a hope and a place of belonging for children with additional needs. I've been trying to support children with additional needs for over 25 years now. Prior to that, I was a children's nurse, also working with children with additional needs. And in those years, things have changed a lot. Some changes have been really good. Some changes have not been quite so good, in fact, quite horrible. Medical understanding and advances have been good, but also bad in the sense that more children are being aborted because they've been able to find out ways of pre-diagnosing before birth. The way we view additional needs and disabilities has changed as well. Everything used to be approached from a medical point of view, that is, just the diagnosis and nothing to do with the child, their personality and their hopes and dreams. Terminology was really different too, and what we now describe as additional need is very different. Even the language has changed, and actually sometimes quite unhelpfully we concentrate more on the language than we do on the needs of the child. This is doing a disservice to our children, and I do find that many professionals tend to go on the patronising approach of, oh dear, that was the wrong language, wasn't it, than actually doing something for our children. There's a huge diversity out there of additional needs and disability, and it is impossible to tie down to one specific phrase. Opinions from both professionals and the people on the street will ebb and they'll flow. Everything changes on a daily basis, a monthly basis, and year on year. Our understanding of some additional needs has improved, opened our eyes to a whole different world, and suddenly we're finding that people that have had these conditions for years undiagnosed are suddenly being diagnosed as 50 and 60-year-olds. But although our understanding as a society has grown, our tolerance has diminished. And the UN has done a lot of research on this and confirms all of that in a recent report. Living in the UK, if you have an additional need or disability, is not a good thing. It has always been the case that children with additional needs and disabilities have been viewed as a problem and not a potential. Occasionally you'll see this inspirational language coming to the fore just because a child has got on with their life and done things with it in spite of having a disability or additional need. The landscape is set to change further with the rise of schooling that relies on academic ability only. We are finding that many children with additional needs are being excluded, or they're being put in a separate place from their peers and not taught adequately, because they may bring all of those tables of academic achievement down for the school. This isn't good enough. The transition from statementing for educational needs to having an education, health and care plan is poor in many of the education authorities. They can't process them in time, and when they have been put in place, families find that what their child needs cannot be provided in their county. Some families are having to move out of one county and into another to find the educational support that their child needs. So in 2018, the way society views children with additional needs can vary hugely. It swings one way and it swings the other. The most prolific view, as I've already said, is that they're a problem. They should be hidden away. They should not be allowed to be born. Parents have things said to them like, you should have had him killed at birth, and I've heard it said. But there are some sectors of society who see them as a drain on government finances. Just a few are seen as an inspiration because they've managed to hit that sweet spot of acceptable disability. They're cute, they're pretty, they're not upsetting everybody. Hate crime against children with additional needs and disability has risen by 150% in 2 years. The pressures on families are severe. Today, if you have a child with an additional need, you are more likely to live in poverty, have a higher risk of marriage breakdown, and have poorer mental and physical health. Now, that's a very brief summary of what it's like outside the church today for families who have children with additional needs. One would hope that church is a place of relief from that, somewhere to go, a break from lots of hospital appointments, lots of meetings, meeting with the educational people, and the daily battle that this brings. But I'm sad to say that often it is just a repeat of their daily battle. All through the years that I've worked in this area, I have had parents talk to me about their children. I've also had churches come to me and say, how can I exclude this child legally? I do often have to say, can we take that back a few steps? Because actually there's a bigger problem behind this. But more and more, monthly, weekly, I'm getting emails from families rejected from church with the excuse of health and safety, safeguarding, and various other things that doesn't fit with the way a church thinks it should be. Yes, there are some wonderful churches out there that are doing an amazing job. They support not just the child, they support the family. They see a much bigger picture of support than just sitting down and listening to a sermon or getting a child to sit still and listen to a story. The national figures quoted in our questions are not reflected in our churches. Do we really have 1 in 5 people with disabilities and additional needs in our churches? We don't. Some have a few more, but not many. Are there 1 in 20 children? That's the figure we're given, but it's actually more like 1 in 10. Again, some churches have more, some churches have none. Many families are asked to leave. Some just leave without saying a word, and they're not followed up. As a result, there is an invisible church out there of people that have been rejected just because they have an additional need that they can't help. There are some families where the church is really accepting and they're great, but the child is far too ill to get to church for various reasons of their disability or additional need. Those families become very isolated because we do church in a building, whereas actually there are many other ways we can do church. Skype, for example, Facebook Messenger, anything, something that brings them face to face with their family in the church. Access information for churches is often not on websites, and many families will actually go to the website first to find out if they can bring their child, but the information is not there. Many parents won't go to a parent and toddler group because they're frightened their child will be judged. Parents of older children won't enrol them into our midweek clubs because they're afraid of being judged and because they can't find the information they need. We discuss a lot about the autistic spectrum, which is absolutely brilliant. We need to be doing that. But often in some churches, this is at the expense of any other additional need or disability. And you will find that children with physical disabilities are walking, rolling or limping out of our churches, not being stopped, because it's all about one disability at the expense of another. Did you know that the largest unreached people group in this country are those with disabilities and additional needs? It's 94% unreached with the gospel, and that is such a scary figure, and it includes children. We need to do better, don't we? The church today needs a revelation to keep up with the change and a revolution to adapt. As I said at the beginning, it looks really depressing, doesn't it? And I don't like doing depressing. But let me give you an upside on this. The church today has more trainers than ever before. 26 years ago, I was the only one out there, or it felt like I was the only one out there doing it. Now you have a massive choice of specialists you can bring in to train, to support and give advice. So let's see children with additional needs and disabilities as first and foremost children, a creation of God, able to follow Jesus and be filled with the Holy Spirit. Also needing discipleship and opportunities to serve, the two things we often forget because we're so focused on giving the message to them and getting them comfortable, we forget to disciple. A child who may need extra accommodations to belong fully in our church communities, that is all these children are. In 2018 and beyond, we need to make sure that these children feel as if they have a place to belong, especially in a world that tells them they don't belong. We need to give them a place of that belonging and safety.